All right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan here with the Coloss of Clout, Keith. What's up, buddy?
The podcast of the ages, right here.
Nice.
Buddy Book Club.
Nice. Did you write that one down?
I did, but I just butchered it because there's no the in it. It's podcast of ages.
Is it Hero of Ages?
Yeah, it's Hero of Ages.
Oh, I always thought there was a the. Well, here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing The Hero of Ages. I actually have the written down. The Hero of Ages, the third installment of the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. This is like Mistborn Trilogy 1. There's Mistborn Trilogy 2. There's another book that's kind of like started a different trilogy, and then he plans to have a Mistborn space opera. When you spend the amount of time building this world, you might as well suck it dry for everything possible. But yeah, we'll be discussing Hero of Ages. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or make fun of us for where we put those, or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast, so please download and subscribe. Keith, this is the first trilogy we finished. We're like the opposite of George R.R. Martin now.
What's the other guy that refuses to finish? The guy that wrote Kavoth?
Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah. Brandon Sanderson is the anti-epic fantasy writer. He's just like, I'm going to crush it in 3 years, and I'm going to write it longer than anyone else writes it. It's like insane.
Yeah, you couldn't read his books fast enough before the next one comes out. It's like he just can't do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I remember when I read Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I gotta catch up so I can like get to the ones as they come out. And this was before the TV show. And the TV show was coming out. I was like, oh, this would be sweet. Like, I'll kind of be able to watch the TV show and then read the fifth one, like, as it's happening. And everything just blew up in my face. Everything just blew up in my face. But we are not here to talk about Game of Thrones. We're here to talk about The Hero of Ages, Brandon Sanderson. We got Vin. We got Ellen back. We got Sazed. You know, what else do you really need? Oh, we need Spook. That's what we need. And we get a lot of Spook in this one. All right, well, let's get into it. Keith, what do you have for stock up for The Hero of Ages?
Stock up Lord Ruler. All things considered, he kind of turned out to be not that bad of a guy, right? Like, he was creating these storage caches where, like, he was writing down all the stuff he knew, providing food and water for everyone. Kind of on the right side of history when you look back at things. I was trying to think, is there any villain that you, like, think is the worst of all time, and then by the end of the book or the end of the movie, you're like, I guess that guy wasn't that bad. I'm thinking like Darth Vader kind of, even though I still think his character was pretty terrible, and so was the Lord Ruler's, but I think the Lord Ruler was better than Darth Vader in my mind. Vader
kind of had a coming to Jesus moment at the end. He was a horrible person and murderer before that. We could say Professor Snape, Severus.
He was never bad though, right?
He was probably bad when he was a Death Eater, but he was kind of like just kind of really into death metal. And got in with the wrong crowd. Just like got into the wrong crowd and then came out of it. And then was like a spy. Yeah, but maybe somebody that we thought was terrible throughout the whole thing, and then turns out, he wasn't at all. But yeah, no, I can't think of anyone that's done that kind of like opposite of a heel turn, whatever that is.
Yeah, he's not like he's a good guy, but at the end of the day, you're like, all right, I get his point of view. So, he's not the worst,
It's funny that you said that because my first stock up was dictators in general, because
it's a better one than mine.
Yeah, so I had the Lord Ruler and then moved it over to dictators, but yeah, because sometimes it works. It's not often, but sometimes it works, and it usually doesn't work in the sense that they're murdering tons and tons of people to save a bunch of others. I mean, so he got the powers at the Well of Ascension, and then he started to try to fix things, but he like didn't realize how exact everything to be. Like, he legitimately pulled the planet like too far away from the sun, and then from there he was just trying to make up for all of the issues that then arose. It's like, oh shit, we're like too close to the sun, so we gotta like start blotting out the sky or else we're all gonna die. And then it's like, shit, nothing can grow. It's like, well, we have to make humans able to eat terrible brown vegetables. It's like, all right, well, whatever, we'll figure that one out. He got the raw end of the deal here, and he was just trying to figure it out the whole time. Unfortunately, he wasn't a good communicator, because I feel like this could have just been discussed. Once Vin and Calcier were doing their thing, he could have just talked about it. Sit down, have a moment, say. But actually, you can't talk about it because Ruin would know. So
yeah,
that was a weird wrinkle that you can't say or write anything down because Ruin will just fuck everything up. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Super frustrating at points reading this book because I was like, just talk about it. I know you can't, but it's just so frustrating. Like, Vin, you learn some shit. Like, anytime anyone would learn something, it's like, well, I got to keep this close to my vest and then do like some wink, wink, nudge, nudges. What else did you have for Stock Up?
Stock Up, Goodwill Hunting.
The movie?
Yeah, so Ellen and Vin go to the ball, and Ellen chats with the ruler of the city that they're sieging. So the obligator Yeoman, I think his name is that right?
Yep, Yeoman.
They basically get into the, like, the discussion of the bar where they're at the Harvard bar, and the one guy trying to, like,
how about
big
them
league.
apples?
Yeah, and he goes up and he's like, "You're your first year ruler. You just got finished reading the Lord Ruler's history book. What are you getting to Pete Garrison probably? Some Gordon Wood?" That's what he's basically doing back and forth with them. And I was just like, is this Goodwill Hunting? Is that Goodwill Hunting him right now? He kept on just arguing about philosophy and like he's like, "Yeah, I read that page. That's Vicus, page 66. I read that too, kid." And I was like, what the hell's going on here? So I just thought that was funny, and I was just imagining that the whole time.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. It was two people on par intellectually and just trying to like discuss philosophies of their ideas back and forth. All smart folks doing smart people stuff. Goodwill Hunting for sure. If only he had said, "How about them apples?" My next stock up are magic boards.
Like the ones where you put your hands on it and you move around and they like choose your letters or whatever. What's that? A Ouija board?
Yeah, that's a Ouija board.
Is that magic? What is that?
No, it's like talking with dead people. You could talk with Vin and Ellen at the end of this book. Hey!
Is that magic? Spoilers.
I don't know. No, a magic board, and I think that's what they're called. Remember when we were kids, the early 90s, and they had those writing things where it was like a stylist and there was like a white background, and when you wrote on it, it brought up some like metallic stuff, and then you would push the lever across and it would erase what you had just written.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I'm pretty sure that that's metal, what they're using, because it's a magnetic,
it's like magnets, right?
Yeah, it's like a magnet thing. So if only these existed in this universe, then everyone would be able to talk about whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Everyone would carry one of these around. Ruin would have no idea. You could just write your notes, say, "Hey, Atium is Ruin's body. Let's get there and destroy it." All right, cool. Erase, swipey, erase thing. Super easy.
Couldn't they just use lead paint too? Like in that metal?
I think lead paint has like trace amounts of.
Number 2 pencils. You ever get stabbed with those guys? Those things, they left a mark. Felt like metal. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Do they have number 1 pencils? I still never understood why. And also milk. 1% just means it's 1% fat removed. What is it? And 2% is 2%.
1%
and then
fat,
whole
I
is
think.
100%.
No, whole is like 5% or 4% or 3% or something like that.
I don't really care for the branding.
Also, people who drink anything less than whole milk, I don't really understand you.
Well, I like drinking milk just to drink it.
Do you drink milk?
I love milk.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not chocolate milk, just like straight milk. Have a glass of
Straight
milk.
milk. There's nothing better than like I got a sandwich that came with a cookie and you pour yourself a nice cold glass of milk with it. Like, what are we doing here? That's the best thing ever. What do you do? Just eat it like a Neanderthal and just fucking eat it straight?
No,
Or what do you wash it down with? Like water? Gross.
I
Or
turn
orange
that
juice?
milk
Gross.
into ice cream and I eat it. I would have water, yeah. I don't need milk. Although I did love a good chocolate milk.
You're just not experiencing a good time if you don't like that. I don't know what to tell you.
I just think it's so weird that people drink milk for some reason. I don't know. It weirds me. It's an odd
How
thing
many
for
bones
me.
have you broken?
One.
All right, damn it. Because it has a lot of calcium, so that's
Yeah,
good, right?
but I also only broke a bone because I punched a refrigerator. It's a long story, but I mean, like,
We have time.
there was no
We got
amount of
time.
milk that was going to save me from that compound fracture. That's for sure.
I can't imagine you getting angry. Is that why you did it? Was it an angry punch?
I did it in anger. Yeah.
Or were you like looking for the milk and you forgot the
No.
refrigerator door was closed and you
No.
punched through it and you're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, that's what it was. No, and honestly, it was a moment of weakness. I was attacked. I was attacked outside.
By the refrigerator?
No, outside of a friend's apartment. And then I was just frustrated that this random person had attacked me. And so I punched the refrigerator and I ended up hurting
Why didn't you
myself
punch
more
the
than
guy that attacked you?
I don't believe in human violence.
I don't believe in attacking appliances, but maybe, yeah, we just have different philosophies, I guess.
Also, they could have used those, you remember those other pads where you'd like write on it and then peel it up and it would erase?
Mm-hmm.
You could,
Yeah.
So either one of those. We just need more of those. And Vin and Ellen could have been on the same page. We could have ended this a long, long time ago. That's
Yeah,
my opinion.
yeah.
Did you have any other stock ups?
Last one, Monday Slow Jams, stock up.
Mm.
I think I've talked about this before, and Slow Jams with a Z. Sorry, I ended with a Z. But
Oh, how avant-garde of you.
coming off a long weekend, you got that 2-day hangover kicking in. You got the Sunday and Monday hangover. You can't be playing the D-Man country music. You can't be playing Good Feels. You can't be drinking a Twitty. You're just kind of a little down in the dumps, You're having the case of the Mondays, and you got to throw in the Slow Jams. That's just a playlist of like R&B hits and some good feel music where you're just kind of slow and relaxing. And my guy Sayed was just playing these the whole book, just a constant repeat, because he was in the case of Mondays the whole book.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I need my guy Sayed back. He's the best character. Like
Yeah.
I need him back. But he was
throwing some like Eric Clapton LP, not the jazzed up Eric Clapton, but the down Eric Clapton. I don't want to say my joke because it's terrible, but Google Eric Clapton and you'll probably figure out what time of his life was the downtime.
I think everyone's aware of that. That's not like you're not revealing any secret.
Do you have a specific playlist here that you're referring to?
Yeah, I do.
Because I'd like to.
Yeah,
I'd like to follow.
You want to follow it?
Yeah,
you may. I had a buddy whose car I was in. Back in the day when you made your own CDs.
Oh, of course.
And he listens to like hardcore rap and all this stuff, and then he just had AC's Slow Jams with a Z on it, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" We popped it in, and it's all like slow R&B, and we made fun of him forever. And then I was like, secretly, I was like, "Yo, bro, that's the best list ever. Like, can I get that copy of that?" I was so into it after that.
Throw that in your burner and burn me a copy. I want you to stamp it. I had one called Emo Feels, and that's probably what Sayed was.
It doesn't
was doing
ring
the
off
whole
the tongue.
time. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. My last stock up was acupuncture. So people think it's this, ancient Chinese medicine or what have you, but it's basically what hemalurgy is, right? You take a spike and you stab someone and it makes them feel better or worse.
And then people start talking to you in your ears. Yeah.
In hemalurgy, you take the spike, you intentionally stab someone in a specific spot that has powers, and then the person that you took the powers from usually dies. They get the powers, so they've stolen their mojo. Straight Austin Powers reference right there.
Oh, yeah.
Mojo stealing. So it's used to create the Koloss, the Khandra, Inquisitors. I mean, I've never had acupuncture done. And I'm glad now because all they're doing with those needles is stealing your mojo and giving it to somebody else. Odds are they're probably hoarding them and trading those needles on the black market. So they'll be like, wow, this guy's hilarious. Let's put a needle in his funny bone and then we're going to give it to someone else. All of a sudden you're not funny anymore. That's what happened to me. Not funny anymore. So I'm never going to get acupuncture ever again.
You know what the cure for that is? Not punching a refrigerator, but opening it up and pouring yourself a glass of milk.
A cold glass of milk.
Yeah.
When you have a glass of milk, what percentage milk are we drinking?
It used to be 1%, but I've been doing 2% lately just because I don't drink as much anymore, and I mostly use it for cereal.
Why not whole milk? Whole milk just tastes better. Like 1% is water.
Whole milk is too thick for me. The thing is, you can get used to it. At college, I drank skim milk, and eventually you just get used to it, but it still was never good with the cereal.
Yeah, skim milk is actually disgusting. And also, if you're going to drink skim milk, it's probably the same price as whole milk, right? So just buy a thing of whole milk and pour some water in it, and that's skim milk. Stock down, skim milk. Speaking about stock down, what do you have for stock down?
Stock down, being a good guy. We already referenced this about my boy Spook, but once again, I think he had a pretty tough book. We talked about book 1. He was basically Forrest Gump, where everyone was like, oh, look at that guy with special needs over there. And, this is Jenny, a.k.a. Vin, who's going to talk down to him the whole book.
Yeah, and also just to be clear on that one, it was an accent. Like he grew up in the streets.
Yeah.
Like he grew up in the streets and he had a street accent. Like he talks in street slang. Granted, they explained it a little more in this book and it's pretty much just pig Latin. Like he was like, oh, we just take the end of the word and add it to the beginning and then put a little funny sound at the end of it. So it's like, all right.
Yeah, I don't get it. No one else speaks different languages or has slang. Every single person speaks exactly the same except for one region. Like,
yeah,
I was like,
it's like, oh, he doesn't
like, whoa,
speak the normal
idiot.
language.
He's speaking Spanish. It's like,
yeah.
Huh? It's like how's that? Yeah.
It's like, I can speak like you guys if I want, but this is how I grew up. Like this is the area I grew up in. Someone from Tennessee goes to school in the Northeast and you just like make fun of that person for the way they sound. It's just like, what? Or like when immigrant populations come in, do you just sit there and make fun of their accents? Like what kind of people
it's not
are
even
they?
an accent. It's like different words that they didn't understand that he would know. So I mean, like he just had a larger vocabulary. Right?
Yeah,
like,
he spoke different languages. These guys are shaming him for being smarter than them.
And then book 2, they're just like, look at there's Spook. He's just a hornball that will go after anything that walks. It is like a piece of
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
coward. And I was like, okay, I guess. We were thinking that he was going to, or at least I thought he was going to be the traitor amongst the group. Just getting shit on so much. He must be bad. And then this book, the middle of the book, I had a note that was like, I'm really happy that they gave Spook a redemption story. But it turns out he's just getting manipulated by Ruin the whole time because he has a spike in him. And then he just sacrifices himself, runs into a burning house, lights on fire to release the water and save the village. So he's just like this good guy that never catches a break. I did like that my boy Sayzed eventually gave him everything back, but he didn't earn that, you know? It was just like, you know.
Oh, he earned it. Not only did he run into that caves or whatever that were on fire to release the water or whatnot, but he also actually ran into a burning building to save a baby. You know, like some straight Superman stuff.
He was a hero. I'm just saying then someone just handed him everything. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there's nothing that he did after that to make it so he healed better or did, you know, it wasn't anything crazy that he did. He was just handed good health by Sayzed and like recovery
Yeah.
from Sayzed. You know what I mean?
I agree that he did get like totally shit on. And like even when people came, they're like, oh, Spook, what have you been doing here? He's like, I've been busting my ass for 2 years in this place.
Yeah.
I'm hurting my health by burning tin nonstop to actually make a difference here. And you guys come in your fancy suits and Sayzed with his high talk and you guys are like, oh, we'll figure it out from here. Like, thanks, kid. Pat on the head. Like, you know, what? It's like, no. So he was busting his ass the whole time, and he did have good plans. He did a lot to actually, like, kill Ruin. You know, he put a lot of things in motion in order to do that. And he seemed like the clearest thinker out of all of them. I thought he had a fascinating story arc because at so many points, I was like, oh, this is going to go bad for him. Like he's pushing that tin stuff so bad. He's like becoming a tin savant or whatever the case was, that it's going to be bad for him. And he's going to end up like fucking this whole thing up. And then when Ruin took over, I was like, oh shit, he's going to be kind of what we thought he was going to be in book 2. And they're going to have to like kill Spook because he's just going to be a bad guy, which wouldn't have been fair to him. But I thought our boy Brandon Sanderson did him a solid, and like he ended up being one of the big saviors here outside of Vin and Elend, and he earned what Sayzed gave him, which was he healed all of his issues that he had from being a tin savant, and then turned him into a Mistborn and kind of said, all right, like we're expecting you to lead from here on out, which I was like, oh, like, you know, if you told me in book 1 that at the end of this story, you know, he's going to get the tome from Sayzed and Sayzed's going to say, you know, we're looking at you to lead the people through this new world. Like, good for Spook, for sure. And his backstory was fucked up. His backstory was super fucked up. Like, his dad was going to kill him. Like, stock down dads.
Not great.
Yeah, not great. Stock up uncles. My stock down is planning ahead. So are you a planner or are you, let's, you know, fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy?
I like that it's in order to say that you say fly by the seat of your pants or you're like off the cuff, right? It's all like clothing metaphors, right?
Sure.
Off the cuff.
Yeah.
Or there's another one I feel like sleeve or something. I don't know. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
Wizard sleeve?
If I have to spend a lot of money or I'm going somewhere, I want to make sure I do it right. But in general, if it's like something that's going to be fun and like I just want to go for the ride usually.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm definitely more of a planner in that same kind of idea. If I'm going to be doing something, like I want to have an idea of what I'm going to be doing, not hour by hour, but if I'm going to go somewhere and do something, like, hey, let's have a plan for that. Like, you know, I'm okay to deviate from it, but let's have an idea, a general idea of what we want to do. But Ruin here, he had 1,000 years to plan his destruction of the world. He's legit doing nothing else besides sitting there and planning for 1,000 years. And obviously he needs to use humans because they have the ability to fuck shit up and be idiots. So, you know, good on him there. But you think his plan would have been a little better, not just like, all right, once I get out of here, I'm just going to follow Vin and Elend around, like waiting till they find the ATM so that then I can like assume my full powers, which is all he was doing. He was just waiting. Like, where is the ATM? Where's the ATM? Where's the ATM? Nope. Didn't have any plan for it. So spent 1,000 years doing it. Didn't end up winning. Ruin. Not good on you at all. Terrible, actually. 1,000 years.
Considering he could control all the Koloss, like, wouldn't you just release the Koloss on everyone then and be like, go search everywhere and kill anyone that gets in your way for the ATM? Like, that's it,
Yeah,
right?
and he's
That's
got all the Inquisitors. Like, he pretty much is using Marsh to figure stuff out, but he's got all these Inquisitors who are, like, leading his Koloss armies, but they're not finding anything. He has the ability to control all the Inquisitors, all the Koloss, all the Kandra,
I think he's supposed to be like
too.
Voldemort, though, right? He's supposed to be like weak, like right now. Like, that's why he needs to like keep.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have like the ability to take full control, do all the things he needed to get done because he is, he doesn't have the ATM. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like maybe in that 1,000 years, you should have had a plan for finding your body, which is the ATM. Like, you should have had a plan for that outside of, okay, once I'm released, now I'm just going to try to figure it out. What was he doing for 1,000 years? Like, watching TV shows? Like, old
catch up
TV
on
shows?
Netflix. Yeah, why not?
They had Netflix in the Well of Ascension? He's watching Gossip Girl?
They also said whenever you burned ATM, it would go back into the mines. So couldn't you just go back to the mines and pick it all up?
No, I don't think that was the case. I know there was something about that where if you burned
like when you burn it, maybe eventually it grew back or something. But yeah, I guess maybe
I thought it was just like a limited supply because that was his body. But there was something about if you burned it, something happened. Honestly, it was a very long book, and I forget that specific thing. Last one for me was piercings. I know, you have the Prince Albert, but outside of that, you don't have any other piercings, right?
Not that you can see. I do have the two, the back piercings. You get them like your crevices on your back.
On the lower back.
What are they, hips? I don't know how they fit in there, to be honest with you, but yeah, I have those occasionally.
Yeah,
but what about you?
Occasionally you have them. I don't think they come out.
When it suits me. Yeah, when I'm feeling it.
Yeah, no piercings for me, and I'm going to keep it that way because Vin's earring was the thing that was keeping her from drawing upon the true powers of the mist. Just one little earring with a piece of silver that everyone's like, oh, no big deal. Also, I'm sorry, but in a world where metals are very powerful and you're throughout this quest, throughout these several years, you keep finding different metals that actually turn out to have powers. Probably just good idea to stay away from all metals. Right,
or swallow the earring, see what happens.
Yeah,
sure. Shit it out and recollect it.
Yeah, recollect it, put it back in your ear, maybe after a little alcohol or something. I mean, like rubbing alcohol, not like drinking or anything like that. But yeah, it's just probably not a good idea that you want to put any sort of metal on you. It's like, whatever. It doesn't affect allomancy. It's okay. No. You never know what the demons can do to you. So, turns out, what did you think about the whole earring? I
thought it was
powerful?
really. I mean, the breadcrumbs were there the whole time.
I called it out last book. Go back
did
and.
You?
Well, I didn't call that it was like Ruin was doing it, but I was like, there's something going on with that earring.
Oh, I figured it was gonna be that she was part. Let's say, is a
terroristman.
Yeah, where she's gonna like unlock it all of a sudden and be like, oh, I guess I have all this other stuff in this earring that's stored up that I didn't realize.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same way. I thought something along those lines, or it would be like memories in there from her youth, and she would see that she was like related to the Lord Ruler or something along those lines.
Yeah. Do you think he wrote that out? Book one was like, all right, here's what the map's going to be. Like, I do an outline for like a 2-page thing I need to write, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, how am I ever going to write this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you possibly come up with this.
Yeah, I remember being a little mind blown just reading Harry Potter. When I finished that, and just being like, whoa, how do you do that? But yeah, you plan out the outlines for the whole thing, as to like what are the key points and like what are some important stuff that has to happen in each one. And then I think you just fill it in.
Well, it's incredible too. Like if you watch a TV show and they'll hire these writers and they'll hire a bunch of them and they'll write the first 6 episodes or whatnot. They'll be like, great, we're running with that. And then they'll be like, okay, now you have to write 5 more seasons. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we didn't map that out. So that's why you end up getting like pretty stale story. It seems like after season 3, things start to go downhill on most shows.
Yeah, it's fascinating when they can figure that out and pull it together. I think it's easier, obviously, for like sitcoms and stuff where there really doesn't have to be a through line.
Like The Wire is based on the book, right? So like that's why you read that and it feels like a book. This is like an actual start to finish good story, whereas 90% of shows can't do that.
So true. Tough to finish. Easy to start, tough to finish.
Yeah. That's what she said.
Yeah, I was waiting for something like that. All right. Did you have a favorite scene in The Hero of Ages? I thought I really liked the first battle against the Inquisitors with the Koloss when Finn and Ellen like had the ability to control the Koloss, and it just kind of threw us in there. It was pretty early on, and you get to see Ellen coming into his powers, and obviously he's been working on them, and it's like, holy shit, he's super powerful because he got them directly from the source. It's interesting that, and it makes a lot of sense that like with hemalurgy or just like powers in general, the like misting powers, that they like get staler over time, or they get like diluted over time based on, with the hemalurgy, it's like if you're passing it from one person to another, or it's like not direct contact, like immediately, or with the Mistborn, it's like, cause they're just like passed down generation to generation. But then Ellen is like superpowers because he got them like straight from the source. So I thought it was cool just to kind of see that happen, and then just kind of fairly easily kill an Inquisitor. It was like Neo in the second Matrix movie when it's like, oh, an agent is nothing. Like I can just crush an agent. No big deal. So I like that. I dug all the Khandra stuff, Tensoon's imprisonment, him trying to figure out how to talk to the first generation, and like that whole thing I thought was pretty cool. And then it turned out that they were like the Terrace Pac-Man from, when Rashik took the power. It's like, all right, what am I going to do with these people? Like, I can't let them go. He's like, oh, I'll turn them into this like Khandra thing. I thought that was super cool. And then my last one is really just Spook Inner Toe. Like everything Spook Inner Toe. I know it's not like a scene, but his story arc in general, I thought was great. And from what I've seen looking at other people talking about this book, it's mostly focused on Sazed, Ellen, and Vin, which I understand, but I thought Spook's name came up like way more than anyone else. So once again, he's getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned Tensoon as well, because I thought the one thing I also really liked about the book is that there was never a period where I'm like, all right, on to the next story. I'm not really caring about this. Like I feel like every single world or every single
area of the map, like
place,
whatever's going on.
area of the map, yeah, exactly, like had a different story that was interesting, and I wasn't upset to go back to it. Whereas like the last book, I liked it, but I think we both agreed it kind of lagged at points, and there was points where they were like shopping and stuff like that. Where this book is like every single thing, even the politics. All right, I'm kind of interested in what's going to happen here, like and why this is happening there. So just overall, that was great.
Yeah, even I can't remember what the other city was where I think his name was Yeoman, right, or whatever the other guy's what name was, the obligator. Even like that stuff, like that political aspect was interesting just to kind of get Ellen's perspective of it. And Ellen being a guy who has this like moral compass, he has these ideas of like what he would do if he was a ruler, and then he gets that in that position, but then realizes like he can't do all the things he wanted to do because it's like the times don't dictate that.
Yeah, it's also easy to criticize when you're sitting on the outside, and then when you get to the position, they're like, well, I have to do these things now. You would have criticized yourself for that, which I thought was definitely insightful.
Yeah, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's what they say.
Wow, nicely done.
Indeed. Yeah, okay, so we're on the same page. You like all that stuff.
Flying by the seat of your pants. Wait, you used that. Damn it. Zipper? Something to the zipper? I don't know.
Don't pull something about Mary and put
don't
your
pull on
penis.
Superman's cape.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. What'd you love about The Hero of Ages?
I thought it was a great trilogy. I thought it was I think we already mentioned this, but it's unbelievable imagination. The world building is incredible. I just don't know how someone does this, honestly. Like somehow you build this big of a world and story and you make it 80 hours, 90 hours. And it seemingly is a pretty easy read. I would call it an epic, but I also wouldn't be like, oh, that's a slug. You're not going to get through that. It's just like, yeah, no, you could do it. It's like a great road trip book, probably. You want to, crush if you're on a long road trip and you need to read something, pick it up. You're not going to be disappointed. It's not going to be hard to read. Brandon Sanderson, again, I commend him for his work.
We tip our hats to him.
Yeah, there we go. Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The world building is incredible. I think there's a lot of criticism, I think, about the way that this book ended. Maybe not a lot,
oh, really?
But I saw some criticism just like, is this, was this wrapped up appropriately? And I honestly think it was. I thought it was fast moving at the end. There was a lot going on for sure. But, Sazed being the hero of ages, kind of going back to all those prophecies and realizing, oh yeah, this totally fits in with Sazed.
Yeah.
Like, how did we not see this before? Him kind of being the guy who isn't ready for the power. Like, it's like, oh, like, I'm not a hero. This isn't for me, is, you know, what we all want in our leaders. You know, the person that has to take it on even though they don't necessarily want it, because that just almost shows how fit they are for the job. And I thought him kind of at the end when he's building the world was super cool. It was just like, oh, I get it. Like, this is great. And the whole, you know, Ellen and Vin dying, unfortunately, but Ellen dying and then Vin kind of fighting Ruin, and then that causes like her and Ruin both to die. But then, you know, Seiza brings their bodies back and they're in this, you know, field of flowers. It was beautiful. But I mean, talk about world building. I mean, there's a whole like wiki, like a big wiki on this world and all of the different powers that are associated. I mean, it goes on for another trilogy and there's more books, because like I was even just poking around it and I was like, wait, they didn't even talk about this stuff. But there's like anatomical maps, and anatomical, I think that's how you say it, I don't know, maps of like how hemalurgy works and like where spikes go that do different powers, like what kind of metal the spike has to be. It's like imagine like not only the words on paper, but the amount of just research on stuff that isn't real, like research in your own brain. Like he's just sitting there thinking about all this shit. And I'm not going to just shit on J.K. Rowling or something, because her world is amazing as well. But, you know, she like comes up with a money system and a sport, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. But this guy's created
yeah, of course.
This guy's created everything. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a great finish to it, and there was just more to learn. Usually in these things, it's like, all right, you learned everything the first two, and then it's like, we're just going to finish up the story here. But there was so much more, whether it be like with the hemalurgy or how the Koloss work or how the Khandra works, like all that stuff I found to be pretty fascinating. I also love a good treasure hunt, and the book kind of does start with Elend and Vin just going, trying to find all these different caches and follow in the steps of the Lord Ruler. They kind of realize, oh, he might have had a good idea here, and like maybe he wasn't as bad as we thought. And it you know, advances more and more, and they're trying to figure out where these caches could be. Will it lead us to the Atium? And I just like any sort of treasure hunt, whether that's Nick Cage and National Treasure. That'll do it for me.
Right.
I like the Boys and the Goonies. That does it for me. Even a little Angels and Demons, some Dan Brown. When I first read those books, I was like, oh, this is super cool. Or Da Vinci Code, whichever one fits your bill. But yeah, good treasure hunt always does it for me. What else do you love?
Yeah, to tie back to what you said about Seiza, I think he was my favorite character in the first two books, and him becoming the hero of ages, I thought there were breadcrumbs given to that occurring and was fitting. It wasn't like Game of Thrones where we referenced earlier, where they just decided to like have Jon Snow not kill the White Walker over there just because they wanted to avert expectations, I think is the words they use. Whereas this one's like, oh, I didn't see that coming, but I also saw it coming. Like, it made sense, you know, at the end when they explained it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Another show I want to tie it back to that was terrible is Lost, where they have like a million things that you're like, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm sure they'll explain it. Yeah. Whereas this, like, stuff I didn't even think about. He's like, no, I got to make sure you understand why I put this in the book. I'm going to explain it.
Yeah, no
to the
loose
T.
ends.
Like,
no loose ends.
Zero
Lost
loose
was
ends.
Only loose ends.
Yeah. So that was awesome as well. And usually when you're this good at world building, the characters kind of lack. They're usually just kind of cliches, or their story arcs are pretty obvious. Or this is like, there's a lot of unexpected twists and turns and different. You never knew what was going to happen next, like ever in this, which is rare, I think, to have both the ability to be able to create a good character like arc and also be able to build a world. So
yeah,
again, props there.
Props to you, Sanderson. And lastly, for love, I love that at the beginning of all these chapters, so this is kind of a thing throughout the series, is there'd be like excerpts from whoever Rashik's uncle was, the guy that was going with Alendi or whatever the guy's name was, who is supposed to be the hero of ages. You know, there's like excerpts from his journal, which kind of outline the hero of ages. So that was happening at the beginning of the chapters in the first two books. And then in this book, we're getting like Sazed reading these.
Which you wouldn't know if it wasn't the audiobook, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you would or you wouldn't, but it was also just like, fine, like he is the terrorist. I think it was his voice doing the other ones too, so it kind of went in sync with that. But it was good because in this one, when they're doing it at the beginning of the chapters, it's explaining a lot of the things that we haven't learned yet. They're using that for like exposition. We got like Basil exposition.
It made much
there.
more sense.
So it was good in this one because the other ones were like, what does this all mean? What does this all mean? And then in this one, he's explaining it. But then only at the end do we figure out it's from the tome that like he wrote as God, explaining the history and the magical elements and whatnot to Spook or the rest of the world, like whoever's going to read this book. It's kind of explaining the world he built, and it fits in the narrative really well because it's like, oh, now I get it. Like that's the book that Sazed was writing when he became God. But it also fits really well because it's exposition as like what is actually like happening with the Koloss and with the Khandra. Like it explains all of that stuff. So I thought it was not only really good for the story, but it was also just super helpful reading along because it was like, oh, now I can kind of get it. Because otherwise I feel like there could have been a lot of confusion. Which, speaking about a lot of confusion, if we're going to get into hate, I didn't hate a lot, but I will say that it's a bit complicated. This whole world, it's incredible, but it is a bit complicated, and I did feel like I needed a reference book at times. They'd be talking about hemalurgy and like this spike goes here and that goes there to like pewter. And I'm like, oh shit, like I don't know. This is a lot for me. So sometimes I have to like pause it and kind of like let that sit through my head, which is like the audiobook version of rereading a page. But I feel like that's just kind of par for the course in a situation where there's just so much going on in this world that it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I agree. When Vin becomes like a mist god or whatever, some of that in the what was it called, Passenger or something? What was the name for
Preservation?
Preservation. Like that stuff was like, I'm a little confused by this. I'm not gonna lie to you. But again, the story itself was so good otherwise.
Preservation and Ruin were both gods, but then they had human bodies. So I was like, wait, was this like someone that had taken the power in the past? Like, are they the original gods? Or is this like happened a few times and people have taken Ruin's power and also taken Preservation's power? Like, I didn't really understand, because it's like when Preservation died, it was like if you had stayed around, you would have seen a body in the ground. It's like, wait, what? Really? How does that work?
Yeah, it was definitely explained. I just didn't understand it, so that's the problem.
After I read this book, I needed someone to like tuck me in and just explain to me a couple of things. Like, Daddy, why did Preservation have a body? It's like, oh, okay, well, in the Old Testament, if you read Luke, section 4:7, section 9, I honestly don't know how the Bible works, but yeah, that's what I needed. Did you hate anything else?
The other thing I hated, and I mean, I think it's basically because this is supposed to be like when you're doing a siege, they didn't have superhuman people that could jump in there and do sieges in the old days. But I still don't understand. Like they get to a place, I just like, hey, go in there. You have two Alamancers who have like are absolutely filthy at fighting. Go in there and assassinate the guy. Just be like, hey, listen, bud, we're going to your ball. We're gonna dance. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a partnership. I'm gonna give you all these things, and if you don't, I'm just gonna murder you, and I'll put someone in that's gonna listen to me. Like, this, my boy JFK. Like, I did the same thing to him. Like, you know what I mean? So
who's they, Keith? Who do you think murdered JFK?
Big businesses did that. They're like, oh, you don't want to go to Vietnam? Oh, that's funny.
Apple.
Yeah. Stephen Jobs. That's who did it. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, he did have ATM, and they didn't have any ATM left, so that'd be tough.
Well, the thing is, ATM gets burned really quickly, so it's like, okay, unless he has a huge cache of this, he's going to use it, and then that's it.
Which they thought he did, to be fair. But at the same time, I also didn't really understand why, like, we're sieging your city, but we're going to come in and be part of the ball. Because also, wouldn't he just be like, all right, next time they come to a ball, let's get 100,000 people to just jump them. Like, they can't kill all of us.
Well, I mean, they did do that, essentially. Like, they knew they were going to come to the ball. They weren't surprised about the next time, and then they trapped Ben, so it worked.
Success. So Keith, that'll do it then. Hero Ages. Would you recommend not only this book but this series? And it's a slog in the sense that it's like you said, 80 hours of your life. So would you suggest someone spends 80 hours of their life listening to this or reading it?
If you like this genre, I think you have to read Brandon Sanderson at this point. I've read enough to know that I think he's a top tier guy. I think the first one, as you mentioned, is probably the best one, and if you really like that, then definitely do 2 and 3. I think 3 is better than 2, but 2 is kind of needed for 3. So I'd recommend it. I definitely think that you can't go wrong. And I think at this point, I haven't read a bad Brandon Sanderson book. So, and I've read probably like 6 or 7 of them. So,
Jeez, so you spent
I'm
half of your life reading Brandon Sanderson
yeah,
books.
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm a fan for sure. It has awesome magical elements that are very unique. And it's something that, you know, you don't see that often in fantasy necessarily. The thing I like most is that each book is its own kind of standalone story. They have clear endings, but you want to read the next one. And another thing that I loved about this book that I didn't really talk about was a lot of times they do this in trilogies where it's almost like an episode of like Mythbusters. Like when it comes back from commercial, they spend the first 10 minutes like explaining what they did before the commercial, and then it's like 2 minutes of new content, and then you're back to a commercial again. This doesn't do that at all. He has such a great way of weaving in what happened in the past books into these current books. I didn't read the wiki for Well of Ascension or anything like that. I just went into it after not having picked up this trilogy in
And we read
6
this 30
months.
books ago.
Yeah, like I haven't read in like 6 months or something. And he did such a great job of weaving in what happened that I didn't even feel like he was just telling me what happened again. Like, I know I already read that. It felt supernatural within the story that I honestly don't even know how he did it. Like, his, I wasn't bored at all. And it also wasn't like, oh, right, he's explained to me what happened in the last book. It's like, what's happening currently, but also using past references to like remind us. So love that. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. This is actually my first foray into Sanderson, this series, and I will continue. I got a Way of Kings or something. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading that one on the side, doing a little side quest.
That's a long one.
Yeah, so that's my 45-hour side quest. So yeah, I'm excited about reading that, and I would definitely say, yeah, if someone was into fantasy books and they had read, you know, the typical ones that most people read, and they hadn't read Brandon Sanderson. I mean, it's the only thing I've read of his, but I would say I'd start here because it's great.
Way of Kings has a 4.6 on Goodreads, which is like
Holy
incredible.
shit.
It has 65,000 ratings on Amazon, 4.8 stars, and it's $10. So you basically get 50 hours of like top tier content. It's pretty decent value there.
That's why I got it on Audible, because I was like, okay, it's 45-hour long book. Like, I'm getting 4 for the price of 1 for this one. So, yeah, that's not the book we're reading. We're not reading another 45-hour one. We're going to go a little bit shorter. Keith, what do we got coming up next?
Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian, or some people say Jillian.
I think it's
McAllister.
Gillian, right?
Gillian?
It's a Reese Witherspoon book club, so we're going back.
Oh,
we're going back to some Reese Witherspoon book club. She has.
You can't get enough, D-Bag.
She has heard us, and she has made us happy. I don't even want to speak of the one she heard us with, but she made us happy with Daisy Jones and the Six. We'd read these long fantasy books, and I think we just needed kind of like a page-turning beach read thriller kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, that'll be coming up next. So we'll see you for that, and we got lots more coming down the pipe. So I'm excited for summer. Hopefully a lot of beach reads this summer. You know, we'll mix it up.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, that'll do it for The Hero of Ages, and that wraps up Mistborn. I don't think we'll be looking into the next series anytime soon, so if you want to stick out for some other fantasy, it'll be coming up, and also there's a ton in the past, so go check it out. And for now, until next time, Keith, I'll see you then. Bye now.
Bye now.